Hi, I'm Jackie. Welcome to my bower. Guess what I'm going to talk about today? I think I'm going to talk a little bit about the Beatles Anthology Book, this anniversary edition of the Anthology Book. It's pretty great. I haven't opened it up yet. I just got it a little bit ago, and I wanted to share it with everybody. Maybe you've already got it. Maybe you've already read some of it or whatever. But, I just want to have a little bit of fun with it and show it to you, as soon as possible. And maybe I'm just going to open it up and maybe read a little bit of it kind of here and there. Feels okay. Oh my God, look at the writing is so incredibly tiny. Even with my glasses, I don't think I can read it. John says, we used to shout in English at the Germans, call them Nazis and tell them to fuck. What in the world? I guess they're talking about Hamburg. And Paul says, one of those days we were doing our stuff and some slightly strange looking people arrived who didn't look like anyone else. Immediately we felt, hey, kindred spirits, something's going on here. They came in and sat down and they were Astrid, Jürgen, and Klaus. Klaus Vormann later played bass with Manfred Mann. Jürgen was Jürgen Vollmer, who was still a good photographer, and so was Astrid Kierkegaard, who was to be Stuart's girlfriend. They were the big love. Anyway, they arrived, sat down, and we could see that they had something different, and we were also what they were looking for. So that's what Paul had to say. Maybe it looks like they're kind of going back and looking back on some of their first impressions, maybe. And then George says, Astrid was the girlfriend of Klaus. At first, they'd had a row one night, so he'd gone off in a huff. He was pissed off with her, and he came down to the very bad area of Hamburg, where he would never have gone otherwise. He was walking around, and he heard this noise coming out of the cellar, so he came into the Kaiserkeller, saw us, and thought we were really interesting. He went back and told Astrid and brought her and some of their friends. There were ballet dancers with them, and they started coming in on a regular basis to see us. Astrid and Klaus would come in most frequently. They liked our band, and they wanted to photograph us. Oh my God, so much going on. Oh, they even have a quote from Stuart Sutcliffe in here. Stuart says, just recently, I have found the most wonderful friends, the most beautiful looking trio I have ever seen. I was completely captivated by their charm. The girl thought that I was the most handsome of the lot. Here was I, feeling the most insipid working member of the group, being told how much superior I looked. This alongside the great Romeo John Lennon and his two stalwarts, Paul and George, the Casanovas of Hamburg. You just never know. I guess there's hope for all of us, right? I hope everybody can find their Stuart or Astrid. I hope so. Oh my God. Okay. So we've already kind of got to this page 53, and they're still just talking about Astrid and Stuart here. Oh my gosh. Now we're on page 67, and we got some Beatle boots here. They're still all in their leathers, and Pete is still there. And now we've got something here. Look at something from Neil Aspinall. What does Neil have to say? All of us were broke, and it was snowing and very cold. We went down to Shaftesbury Avenue, and around there, amazing things to buy. The boot shop, Anello and David, was on one corner. Then Cecil Gier, they'll close there. We went into a club up by St. Giles Circus. We didn't stay long because it was boring. Some of the women had an after 8 shadow. What in the world does that mean? I don't know. What is Neil talking about, an after 8 shadow on some of the women? We were slaving, and we were starving, and we went into a restaurant. All that we could afford was the soup, so they threw us out, and we went into Soho and got something there. London was all very exciting and new. Oh my goodness gracious sakes alive. Oh my God, what in the world? Oh my God. Okay. Let's see. Let's go on. Let's move up to Paris, page 115. So this is Paris. Obviously, this is January. Okay, this is January of 1964, right before kind of everything happened. Okay, let's read what John has to say. John, here at the top of the page, John says, I Want to Hold Your Hand. It's a beautiful melody. I remember when we got the chord that made that song. We were in Jane Asher's house downstairs in the cellar, playing on the piano at the same time, and we had Oh, you got that something. And then Paul hits this chord, and I turn to him and say, "That's it. Do that again." Those days we really used to do we really used to absolutely write like that, both playing into each other's noses. Oh my God. I'm just like getting chills. Absolutely a million percent getting chills. They've even got, oh my God. Okay. And George says, it was such a buzz to find that it had gone to number one. We went out to dinner that evening with Brian and George Martin. George took us to a place which was a vault with huge barrels of wine around. It was a restaurant, and its theme was, well, the bread rolls were shaped like penises. Okay. Oh my God. The soup was served out of chamber pots, and the chocolate ice cream was like a big like, oh my God. And the water came around, and the water came around and tied garter and no, the waiter came around and tied garters on all the girls' legs. I've seen some pictures of us, and there's a photograph around of Brian with a pot on his head. Oh my, and we've all known that picture. I don't know if I should read any more of that part, but you got to get the book and you've got to read it yourself. And then Derek Taylor. Okay, let's skip ahead to like some other pot here. Oh my God. I've just kind of turned to magic. Probably seen this. Here they are. There they are, guys. Writing in each other's noses. Magic. Okay. This is very interesting. Look at this. Here they are. It looks like they are just, there's Pete Best. I think this is the beginning of 1962. It says, Neil Aspinall is talking here. He says, then Neil Aspinall says they'd been rejected by almost every record label. Finally, Brian sent the guys a telegram to Hamburg. EMI request recording session. Please rehearse new material. Brian told them it was a record contract. It wasn't really. It was just an audition with a producer, George Martin. And then George Harrison says the Parlophone audition was June in '62. It went not too badly. I think George Martin felt we were raw and rough, but that we had some quality that was interesting. We did Love Me Do, P.S. I Love You, Ask Me Why, Besame Mucho, and Your Feet's Too Big, among others. Your Feet's Too Big was a Fats Waller song, and that was Paul's dad's influence. He says, Then George continues and he says, what I recall about George Martin the first time we had met him was his accent. He didn't speak in a Cockney or a Liverpool or a Birmingham accent, and anyone who didn't speak like that we thought was very posh. He was very friendly, but school teacherly, we had to respect him. But at the same time, he gave us the impression that he wasn't stiff, that you could joke with him. There is a well-known story about when we'd finished playing and we were walking up the stairs to the control room into Studio 2. He was explaining things and he said, is there anything that you're not happy about? We shuffled about silently. Then I said, well, I don't like your tie. And there was a moment of, oh, and then he laughed and he did too. And then we laughed and then he did too. Being born in Liverpool, you have to be a comedian. These are some great pictures, man. And then here's Paul on this page. Paul said on this page where Ringo is, says that we really started to think we needed the greatest drummer in the world. And the greatest drummer in our eyes was a guy, Ringo Starr, who had changed his name before any of us, who had a beard and was grown up and was known to have a Zephyr Zodiac, and that's a car. So we made Ringo an offer to join us, and Pete had to have the dreadful talking to. Yike. Okay. So there's that. Oh my God. And here's this page. This is a great book. Okay, I think this will just one more story and then that's it here. George says, after the Hamburg period, we were driving up and down, doing gigs at the BBC in London a lot. We got a better van and made more money, and then a better van still. Ringo says there are lots of driving stories. This is how a band gets close in the van. Going up and down the M1, freezing your balls off. fighting for the seats. A lot of madness went on in the van, but it got us together. We had a Bedford, and we'd had a Bedford and Neil would drive. There'd be the passenger seat for one of us, and the other three, whichever three, the rest of us would sit behind on the bench seat, which was pretty miserable. We would go everywhere in the van, and amps and everything would fit in it. With us. I remember sliding all over Scotland. It was bloody freezing in the winter. John says, but we always got screams in Scotland. I suppose they haven't got much else to do up there. Touring was a relief, just to get out and break new ground. We were beginning to feel stale and cramped. I don't know. I don't know what to tell. Okay, I'm going to close it with one last quote here from George. Okay, George says, as a band, we were tight. That was one thing to be said about us. We were really tight. As friends, we could argue a lot amongst ourselves, but we were very, very close to each other. And in the company of other people or other situations, we'd always stick together. If we were arguing, it was always about things like space. Who's going to sit on the spare seat because everyone else had to sit on the wheel, arches of the floor, all the way to Scotland or somewhere. We used to get ratty with each other, pushing, protesting. It's my turn in the front. Oh my God. I could go on and on and on, but I just kind of wanted to share that. A lot of beautiful stuff. I mean, you don't even really get too deep into it when there's just so much. It's just a treasure trove of stuff. It is a beautiful thing. Going to be having it close by from now on with me. Here's the back. Here's the back of it. Here's the front. And it's pretty good size, okay? It's pretty big. I mean, I spent $47 at Barnes & Noble. Oh, here's a picture of Brian Epstein. Okay, I got to close it up. Otherwise, we're going to be here all day. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate it. And until next time, peace and love one another. Take care.
Beatles is Beatles, Beatle. In the end, it's like, oh, sod off with the Beatles,